Hi there. The first part we will elaborate to you is the name of the ethical theory and its definition. Care ethics views all emotion as morally undesirable. Ethics of care views some emotion as morally undesirable and some as morally desirable. The relationship between a mother and her young child will normally be a good example here. The ethics of care is a normative ethical theory that holds the moral action centered on interpersonal relationship of care as a virtue. Ethics of care is one of the cluster of normative ethical theories that were developed by feminists in the second half of 20th century. Within the ethics of care, the one caring receives the cared for without evaluation. The particularity of relation is fundamental to the ethics of care. According to the Noddings, each caring relation consists of at least one to two people, the one caring and the cared for. Such a relation can certainly be more than the merely jadic. Ethics of care is a feminist approach to the ethics. It challenges traditional moral theories as male-centric and the problematic to the extent to the omit or downplay values and virtues usually culturally associated with women or with roles that are often cast as feminine.
Definition of ethics of care. An ethics of care directs our attention to the need for responsiveness in relationships, such as paying attention, listening, responding, and to the cost of losing connection with oneself or with others. So its logic is inductive, contextual, psychological, rather than deductive or mathematical. So uh, ethics of care interfere with emotions and reasoning that influence in rules and regulations. So most people say that the ethics of care is better at protecting our other emotions, which is where it brings good decisions or actions of a person's minds. So because the ethics of care responds to the need for attention, listening to ourselves or others, so that we are less confused in our decisions or our future actions. So July 16, 2011, Julia Gann's works on moral development outlines how a woman's morality is influenced by relationships and how women form their moral and ethical foundation based on how their decisions will affect others. So, Carol Julia Gans, she believes that women tend to develop morality in stage. So, based on work of Julia Gans, uh, women have to tend to develop and have form moral and ethical foundation. So, so that it is important for each of us to be responsible for all of our decisions, as it will affect our reasoning and our emotions. Thank you.
The ethics of care of moral imperative where usually goes beyond our legal responsibilities, and it urged to act even though it is uncomfortable to do so. So how is it connected to ethics of care? Simple, because the ethics of care refers to the ideas that concerns on both nature, morally or normative ethical theory. Care as normative is indeed related to the idea of not conflicting harm. It also includes reasonably limited commitment to actively working for the prevention of harm. So one example for that is the Golden Rule, which connotes of do unto others what would you want others do unto you. For example, since I don't want to steal my best friend necklace, then I won't steal that because I don't want to steal by her. And the second one is my best friend is in pain. So I should give her some positive advices because that's what I want my best friend do unto me. And by this same reasoning, we can theoretically determine if it's whether positive actions, if it's right or wrong. And that's how normative theory works.
Ethics of care is one of a cluster of normative ethical theories that were developed by feminists in the 20th century. It is a normative ethical theory, which means it is a theory about what makes actions morally right or wrong. Okay, so it is a feminist philosophical perspective that uses a relational and context-bound approach toward morality and decision-making. It is concerned with criteria of what is morally wrong or right. It includes the formulation of moral rules that have direct implication for what humans' actions, institutions, and ways of life should be like. Normative ethics analyzes how people ought to act. For example, Amber is 25 years old and was diagnosed with breast cancer, and her doctor believes that she only have 1 month to live her life. In that time, Amber's health like killing her as it gives so much pain. So Amber decided to live out the rest of her life with her family. However, if she can no longer take care of herself, Amber will want to go for physician-assisted suicide. But her doctors doesn't support this idea because they view this as murder. Also, the care for Amber will increase because she knows Amber for 3 more than a years.
Famous thinkers and proponents or opponents. Proponents. Neil Nollings. Neil Nollings is a philosopher who provided one of the first comprehensive theories of care and argued that caring is a foundation of our morality. She also asserted that a caring relation is ethically basic to humans. She believes that caring is natural for us to feel, and maybe that's the reason why we feel pity on others, why we have the urge to help them, even if we don't really need to, even if it doesn't benefit us, because it's basic for us to care for others. Aristotle outlined the importance of feeling at the proper times and for good reasons. Codependence means caring for others to the exclusion of self. So we care for others, sometimes not even caring for ourselves, especially when it comes to our family. We tend to prioritize them first before ourselves. Selfishness, caring for self to the exclusion of others. Sometimes it just means we have to prioritize ourselves over others because we have to help ourselves first before helping others, before we care for others.
Good day, everyone. If we ever think about the word opponent, it defines as something that disagrees or to resist in a particular proposal. These people merely the one who opposes. Some of the opponent philosophers in the care of ethics, firstly is Elizabeth Spellman. She said that ethics of care overly romanticizes motherhood and does not adequately represent the vast experience of individuals. Means she opposes for some reason that it overly romanticizes the motherhood. That's the reason why she opposes. Then there's Friedrich Nietzsche said that oppressed people tend to develop moral theories that reaffirm subservient traits as virtues. The charge that care of ethics is a slave morality interprets the different voice of care. Means that Friedrich Nietzsche opposes because care of ethics overlaps the virtue of care or the voice of care that results to the slave of morality.
A number of criticism had been launched against care ethics, including that is A. Slave morality, B. Essentialist, and C. Ambiguous. First criticism is that care ethics is a slave morality. This critic issues caution against uncritically valorizing caring practices and inclination because women who predominantly perform the work of care often do so to their own economic and political disadvantage. To the extent that care ethics encourages care without further inquiring as to whom is caring for whom and whether these relationships are just, it provides an unsatisfactory base for a fully liberatory ethic. This objection further implies that the voice of the care may not be a authentic or empowering expression, but a product of false consciousness that equates moral maturity with self-sacrifice and self-effacement.
Hey guys, I'm Eliza May Bautista and I will be talking about care ethics as essentialists. Care ethics as essentialists is a stereotype of what you are seeing more often that causes you to judge other people on how they took care to another just because of some circumstances. For me, it is not an ideal view because you are concluding that a person is not capable enough to do his or her job as a caregiver because he or she lacks the qualities or the attributes of a stereotyped caregiver. Also, it talks about the ethics of care as a feminine or gender approach to morality. Nowadays, we are failing to understand the concept of differences in which we as women and other gender should not be romanticized with what we should do and what we can't. We should always aim to understand and criticize the ability of individuals by respecting their own classes, races, age, and status in life. Furthermore, this concept was also affected by political implications in which everything you receive is based on your status in life. So basically, care ethics as essentialist is more about bias. It's more about judging me without you knowing me personally. So we should all stop this kind of personality. We should always respect one another even if it's their status in life, based on their gender, their age. We should always respect one another to get back the respect we want. So that would be all. Thank you guys.
Some care ethics explain the non-principal nature of care ethics to be overtested. Noting that because of care respected may issue some principle does not mean that its issue or principle and trial. Care ethics might pertain to origin and basic need, care of relations, the evaluation of claims of need, the obligation to care, and the scope of care distribution. On principle, it would seem a care ethics guide the moral agent to recognize relational interdependency, care for the self and others, cultivate the skills of attention, respect, response, and completion, and maintain just and caring relationship. While terrorists define care ethics as a theory derived from actual practices, they simultaneously resist subjectivism and moral relativism. Care ethics as Aveganius for the explanation is care ethics is often accused of being unduly obligatorious and for failing to other concrete guidance and ethical action. Thank you.
Methods of the Curie ethics of care. First, the best that can be said is that we have an obligation to assist those people around us. Now, for example, let's say an acquaintance tells you she just had a messy breakup with her boyfriend. You don't know her very well, however, you believe that showing your care is the best response, so you give her a hug. And that's an example of care ethics allowing us to focus our energy to most immediate human needs. It requires us to hold and at the same time an ability and preparedness to act in response of the recognition of the needs of others. To recognize and respond to our own needs of care and to accept care from others. Second benefits of the Curie ethics of care. Care ethics encourages us to focus on our role in the web of relation that extends through our society and the world. Depending on our role in the society, the caring actions available to us will vary greatly. Care ethics encourages us to treat our society and even our world just like how we treat our family. This includes, for example, the market relations. Do I really need this extra package of toilet paper in the light of what others in the supermarket needs? Or community relations. How can I best help my neighbor through this? As you can see, the benefits of the care ethics is that it advises us to consider each relation in society which we stand people and assist those relationships work for all involved.
One of the benefits of this theory is relationship. The fact that a normative theory, care ethics has important implications for people's relationships, for people as individuals, and for how we might nurture caring values in others. So there are this relationship with family, friends, social workers, and others. So, ethics of care consider the family as the primary sphere in which to understand ethical behavior and virtues are inherited. And among the virtues, Aristotle it only discusses that friendship is characterized as willing the good of the other. For some good reason, ethics of care perspective is compatible with the social work profession's overriding concern about human well-being and relationship. Ethics of care is primarily concerned with caring for others and to those who cannot take care of themselves, such as infants and persons with disabilities, because care ethics is a natural human response to avoid pain and suffering of others. So, another benefit for this theory is the peacemaking. Peacemaking justice is an Asian approach to justice that includes the concept of compassion and care, connectedness, and mindfulness, so that the action and decision should come from compassion rather than the rights and duties, and it is different from utilitarian, which the one person cannot be sacrificed for others, because ethics of care theory believes that context can sometimes overrule justice and our universal code of conduct. So Carol Gilligan once said, while an ethic of justice proceeds from the premise of equality, that everyone should be treated the same, an ethic of care rests on premise of nonviolence, that no one should be hurt.
Healthcare ethics is the field of applied ethics that is concerned with the vast array and moral decisions and making decisions that arise of practice of medicine in addition to the procedures of the policies that are designed to guide such practice. Healthcare ethics, aka medical ethics or bioethics, it's simplest, but it is a set of moral principles, beliefs, and values that guide us in medical choices about medical care. Healthcare ethics is our sense of right and wrong, and our beliefs about right we possess and duties we owe others. For example, a patient and his or her family play different roles, owe different ethical obligations to each other than a patient, his or her physician. So, thinking carefully about ethical aspects of healthcare decisions help us make choices that are right, good, fair, and just.
Applications of the ethics of care in business. It has been suggested that the notion that we should care for others be extended to businesses as they, too, are linked into networks of relationships. A care ethical approach to business is unique and important because it conceptualizes mutual interdependency and cooperative relationship as ontologically basic. It thus challenges the assumption that an individualistic, competitive, or aggressive marketplace is inevitable without dismissing the strategic value of these traits in certain situations. Advocates of incorporating an ethic of care into the business field maintain that this can be advantageous for firms. Yes, because in a similar manner, Care Ethics provides an innovative guide for business in a global age. When applied to business, a globalized ethic of care underscores the potentials and pitfalls of conducting international business in ways conducive to the provision of care. And a care ethic is also much less likely to struggle conceptually with the problem of having moral obligations to future people and beings.
I am Leia May Espinosa, and I will present on behalf of Miss Angeline Oka. She is sick for more than a week, and as the one who is in charge with this group activity, she asked me to share with you her thoughts and ideas for her presentation part, which is application of the theory in issue environmental ethics. All ideas or explanation stated for this part are originally made by her. On behalf of Miss Oka and in this group, I sincerely appreciate your kind consideration. Feminist conception of care ethics offer a range of ideas and tools for environmental ethics, especially ones that are helpful for unearthing deep connections and moral commitment and for guiding environmental decision-making. Care often figures behind the scenes and policies and practices that aim to promote both human and environmental well-being. More work is needed, however, to draw attention to the important contribution made by ethics of caring and spheres of environment. Movements such as the Mother Earth Water Walk and the Green Belt Movement are ongoing examples of the effectiveness of on-the-ground environmental care ethics. The gendered, feminist, historical, and decolonial dimension of care ethics and related approaches to environmental ethics provide rich ground for rethinking and reclaiming the nature and depth of diverse relationship as the very fabric of social and ecological being.
This can be evaluated through an example. When a child fell from playing, the care we show to him when he is our own child should never be different from the one we show to others' child. This makes sense, as the care might vary from one person to another. She also suggests caring for those who are in need for it and stress one to show some responsibility to respond for such people. This might include the aged people who are facing incurable diseases or illness of later life. These people will have the craving for care, and giving care to them is worth it. This not only helps one to be close to another, but creates a basic relationship with everyone, in turn brings harmony among individuals. Showing a lot of care for those who worth it is no use. Many times we come across such situation where people don't bother if someone is hurt or ill, but in turn, they seek for attention when they are not well. Helping such people might be good but not always. Expecting a bit of the same when one is not well is required. It is what Carol Gilligan says.
In conclusion, EOC, or the ethics of care, theorized that care is the reason rather than the universal rules or principle for a moral agent to act morally or reasonable. But this theory opposes the view that moral agent should be emotionless to act in a good way or morally because care is considered an emotion. This theory also implies that women are more of a caregiver than men because they tend to be more emotional. That is why ethics of care is sometimes referred to as feminist ethics because of its association to women. But obviously, it's not only women who give care to others, yet empathetic professions like nursing, caregiving, childcare, and teaching, and counseling are dominated by loving women. And take note that women still do the majority of unpaid caring roles such as child rearing and domestic roles at home. So let us always support those carers and the policies that seek fair, remuneration, and equal respect and values for those who are in caregiving roles.
The first question to reflect on the moral theory, known as the ethical theory, is what is the difference between ethics of care and the other moral theories. For utilitarianism, the morally correct actions are the ones that bring the most happiness to the most of the people, acting for the good of the whole. Care ethics is different because you are acting for those with whom you have intimate relationships. For example, in a situation where you have to kill your mom to save 5 strangers, as Jeremy Bentham, one of the founder of the modern utilitarianism, put it, everyone counts for one, no one for more than one. Utilitarianism would say the moral choice is to kill your mom. In contrast, care ethics would say that the moral choice is to save your mom. While consequentialists and deontological ethical theorists emphasize generalizable standards and impartiality, ethics of care emphasize the importance of responding to the individual. Deontology is a theory that suggests actions are good or bad according to a clear set of rules. An example of deontology is the Ten Commandments, as is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Virtue ethics focus on moral character, whereas the ethics of care concern itself, especially with caring relations. Virtue ethics, unlike other perspectives in ethics, don't give us guidance regarding what to do. It doesn't tell us that we should increase happiness in the world, or defend equality, or avoid murder. Rather, it simply tells us to develop a sound, moral character. According to virtue ethicists, when we have a virtuous character, we will act correctly. In care ethics, we only had to care for the people with whom we have strong relationships. We would care for very few individuals. We would not care for the overwhelming majority of humanity since we have no relationships with them. Next question is, what is the distinction between ethical and natural caring? Nothing distinguishes between acting because I want and acting because I must. When I care for someone because I want to care, say I hug a friend who needs hugging in act of love, nothing claims that I am engaged in natural caring. When I care for someone because I must care, I say I hug an acquaintance who said hugging in spite of my desire to escape that person's pain. According to Nothings, I am engaged in ethical caring. Ethical caring occurs when a person acts caringly out of a belief that caring is the appropriate way of relating to people. When someone acts in a caring way because that person naturally cares for another, the caring is not ethical caring. And since ethics of care is a normative ethical theory that holds that moral action centers on interpersonal relationships, do our relations are part of what constitutes our identity? What are the ways a relation can completely change who you are for the better? The answer is, the relations create identity. As people age, and intimate relationships end either by breakup or death, people say they feel like they've lost a part of themselves. And by that time, there is a possibility that their identity can severely stressed or destroyed. Anyways, here are 6 ways a relationship can completely change who you are for the better. Number 1, you discover yourself on a deeper level. Number 2, your self-esteem gets a boost. Number 3, your stress reduces. Number 4, possibility reigns supreme. Number 5, your personal development will enhance. And thus, there are notable health benefits. All in all, a meaningful relationship can really change your life and make you a much better person. It all depends on the connection you have with your partner and your determination to make the best of it.
Is ethics of care a form of virtue ethics? Well, ethics of care is about contextualizing or promoting the well-being practice, while the form of virtue ethics is also about moral wisdom. That's why ethics of care is a form of virtue ethics. What is the difference between ethics of care and Aristotle's virtue of ethics? The difference between those two is that ethics of care focuses on personal relationship that reflects your moral decisions, while virtue of ethics focuses on living a good life with moral acts.